Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all the praises and thanks are due to Allah, and we send peace and blessings upon his servant and messenger, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, who was born in Mecca and died in Medina over 1444 years ago. Welcome to another episode of the Heart Matters podcast. This is chapter 5, episode 2, Inspiring Stories. And I said, well, let me come on and just share with the audience my story about how Allah blessed me to become Muslim. So it started when I was young, when I was like 11 years old. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that was the beginning of it. I had no idea. But one day, one of my older sisters, she came home from school, and we grew up in Newark, New Jersey. So she came home and she was going to Malcolm X Shabazz High School at the time. So she came home from school one day. I was 11 years old, 10 or 11, somewhere around there. And she came home one day and she had this big green book, and it was wrapped up in plastic, right? And I asked her, if I could see it. And she was like, no, you can't mess with it. It's like, I don't remember her exact words. She was like, it's a special book and stuff like this. And she put it up on the shelf in the bedroom. And then, like at that time, I didn't really pay attention to it. But sometimes I would be like running around the house and playing and stuff like that. And every now and then I would just stop and look up at this book. And I was wondering, well, what is so special about this book? Why is it up there? But I never touched it. Right? But I always, because it was on the shelf, but it was like hanging off the shelf, so I could see the edge of it. So every now and then I would just stop and look up at this book, like, what's so special about this book here? But I never touched it. So we fast forward. So I'm 19 years old. I go to prison. I'm in prison. So I'm in prison, because, I'm in prison, and pretty much when I get there, I'm pretty much doing the same stuff that I was doing on the street, except for I wasn't on the street, and, it wasn't, women involved and stuff like that. But, I was getting high, I was acting a fool, I was cussing like a sailor, I was, I was just ignorant, right? So, like I said, I was 19 years old, and I was just a fool, just an ignorant guy. So I was on a wing. It was a 7 wing. I was in Trenton. I was on the wing. It was a 7 wing. And that was a single cell situation where I was in the cell by yourself. Everybody was in cells by themselves on 7 wing. So one day a big riot broke out in the mess hall. I was already back in my cell, but this big fight broke out, and it was so massive. A lot of police got hurt and everything like that. So they decided they were going to close down 7 wing, because I won't get into all the details, but it was because 7 wing the way it was. That is where most of the police got hurt at, because there were hiding places for prisoners where they could hide. So when the police ran in, they couldn't see them. So because of that, they decided, like immediately after the riot, that they were going to close down 7. Right? And I was on 7. So instead of moving me to another cell, they just took me out of cell and they put me in lockup. Now, I wasn't supposed to be there because I didn't do anything. Right? But they just took me because they was moving everybody off 7. So I'm in lockup. Then I come and they take me over to, like a lockup site. And then I said, listen, I'm not supposed to be over here. They said, okay, well, like a lot of the jail is, the single cells, locked down like this. But said the only place you can go is 4-wing. And 4-wing is triple lock. It's 3 people to a cell, right? And it's, a lot of homosexuality and stuff like that, So they was like, we'll let you out, but, that's the only spot we got for you over there. I said, okay, no problem. It wasn't no problem with me. I wasn't worried about it, so I went over there, and then I was upstairs and then I moved downstairs, right? There was upstairs and then downstairs. I moved downstairs. So it was triple lock. And then eventually they made it, and they made it into double lock. So they got rid of the third person and there was only 2 people in the cell. So by then I was there over there for a while, and I started writing poetry. I got me a typewriter and stuff like this. I started writing a lot of poems and stuff like this. So there was an individual who moved in my cell. I can't remember his name. Saved my life. I don't remember. But he claimed to be a Muslim. He wasn't. That was his claim, but he wasn't a Muslim. And I found that out later on because I didn't know. I didn't really know what a Muslim was. So I couldn't confirm or deny whether he was telling the truth or not. But all I know is he never prayed. You know what I'm saying? He never read the Qur'an. So, looking back on it, I know that he wasn't a Muslim, but he claimed that he was. So, I would let him read some of my poems and stuff like this, right? So one day when, he finished reading a couple of my poems, he said, look, you should read the Qur'an. I said, the Qur'an? He was like, yeah, you should. And by then I knew what the Qur'an was. I hadn't read it yet, but I knew what it was. He said, you should read the Qur'an. So I knew, a guy, that I could get a Qur'an from, right? So I went to him and I said, look, let me borrow your Qur'an. And when he came to his gate to give me the Qur'an, it was just like the book that my sister had. It was a big green book and it was wrapped up in plastic. This big green book wrapped up in plastic. It was just like that. And I found it was a Yusuf Ali translation. Right? So I got the book. I went back to my cell, and because of the experience that I had with the Quran when I was younger, when my sister brought it home and told me I couldn't touch it because it was a special book and she put it up on the shelf, I had respect for the book. I had respect for the book automatically. So I didn't know how to make ablution or wudu or anything like that. I didn't know how to do any of that. So I would wash my hands and stuff like this and rinse my mouth out and stuff before I would read it. So I started reading every day. And the first thing that I read, I started from the beginning. And anybody who knows about the old Yusuf Ali translations, I don't know if they've changed them now, I don't know. But with the big green ones, he starts with a biography of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's what he starts with. He starts with a biography of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's not real long, but it's long enough for us to get to know who the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was before revelation, how he received revelation, and like this. So I read that first, and I was totally moved. I was like, I was like, this is incredible. I was like, this is incredible, right? So that just motivated me to read the book, right? So I was just reading and stuff like this, and and I was just picking verses. I was picking different verses and things like this, right? So then, the guy that was in my cell who claimed to be a Muslim, who never went to Jummah, he said, "Man, why don't you just go down there to the Jummah services?" But he never came. I don't remember the guy's name. Anyway, I went to Jummah. I went to Jummah. Went to the Jummah prayer. And, they had a guest section in the back. So that's where I sat at, like a guest rug in the back. So I sat there. And I was just, I was taken by, the prayer and things like this. So one day, like this wasn't Juma. I was going to school because I was trying to get my GED and stuff like this, because I didn't graduate from high school on the street. So I was trying to get my GED and everything. So there was a classroom across from the class that I was in, that we were in, where we were going to school. And you could see there was like a window there, and you could see the chalkboard in that classroom. And I looked in there, and it was some Arabic written on the board. I didn't know what it was at the time, right? So I said to one of the guys that was in class with me, I said, "What is that on the board in there?" He said, "Oh, that's Arabic." He said, "That's where the Muslims study at. They learn Arabic over there." And just the way it was written in the calligraphy of it, I said, "Man, I need to learn that." I was like, "Yeah, I need to learn that." Right? So I think it was the following Juma or the Juma after that, there was an individual who they used to call Big Fruity. That wasn't his name then. He was from the Nation of Islam, who are not Muslim, by the way. Right. But he had become a Muslim. So he came in to give the Friday talk. He came in to give the khutbah. So he's a big guy, right? So he's up there, and he started reciting the Qur'an. I don't remember what he was reciting. All I know, he started reciting a portion of the Qur'an. And he had this big, thick voice, and he was like, he was like, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," and he started reciting this, and I was like, and mind you, I'm sitting in the guest section. I was like, wow. I was just, so then when it was over, they prayed and everything. I went to one of the guys who was on security. His name was Saleh, right? He was my first teacher in Islam. He was my first teacher in Islam. His name was Saleh Abdul Latif. He's from Camden, New Jersey. Remember, yeah, strong brother, man. Alhamdulillah. So I didn't know him at the time, but I went to him. I said, "Man," I said, "Brother, what was that he was reciting?" Right? He said, "Oh, that was the Quran." I was like, and I said to myself, I was like, wow. I was like, I got to get it together, some type of thing, right? So then Solly started talking. He said, "Look, man, you come down here every week," because I had been going for like 4 weeks or something like this. So he said, "Man, next week when you come, man, you might as well just go ahead and get in the ranks." I said, "Man, but I ain't, I'm not Muslim." He said, "Don't matter, man. Just get it. You just go on up front like that." So the next week, that's what I did. I came in, what I'm saying, I hadn't taken my Shahada yet. So I went up and I was in the first rank. I went in the first rank, and I just sat there, and listened to about. So like when I went in, I said, "Well, what about when they get in pray?" I went to Salt Lake, and I said, "Well, what about when they pray?" He said, "Man, just follow them." That's what that's what he told me. He said, just do what they do. I said, "Okay." So I went up, I sat in the first rank, and he gave the Imam gave the talk and everything like this, and they got up to pray. And I just followed them. shoulder to shoulder, heel to heel. I lined up the way they lined up everything. So when they, they did the takbir, so I didn't, I didn't know what to say. So I just raised my hands the way they did, and put my hands where they did. So like hold the whole prayer, I'm watching them. I'm watching the guys. It was great. It was great. So finished, and I just, so then I kept reading the Qur'an. And I remember there was like back then there was like the Nation of Islam and all of these other people trying to call you to this and call it. So I just cut everybody off. I stopped. So one day this guy in the yard, the same guy who gave me the Quran to read, offered me some weed. And back then weed was my weakness. That was the go-to drug for me, right? So he offered me some. I said, nah, man, I'm good. I was like, no, I'm good. I stopped getting high and everything. Right. And I stopped hanging around the guys that I was hanging around. I just hung by myself. Because the Quran was, although I was just reading the translation, it was, and I was going to Jummah every week, and Allah was just, He was just guiding me, and then, I would, talk to Allah. I was making prayer, like I would talk to Allah and ask Him to guide me and this and that, and like I was just, so I I remember this turning point. I started reading, and I went to the Quran one day, and I saw this chapter. It was called the Bee. It was called the Bee, and I just started reading from this chapter called the Bee. So, and I remember there was a very significant part that I read that really struck me. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it, just the translation. I'm not going to read the Arabic of it because I wasn't reading the Arabic then. I wasn't reading the actual Quran. I was just reading translation. I didn't know Arabic yet. So I started reading and I read, excuse me, I read, and we have not sent down the book to you except that you may explain clearly unto them those things in which they differ, and as a guidance and a mercy for the people who believe. And Allah sends down water from the sky. Then He revives the earth with it after its death. Verily, in this is a sign for people who listen. And verily, in the cattle, there is a lesson for you. We give you to drink of that which is in their bellies, from between excretions and blood, pure milk, palatable to the drinkers. And from the fruit of date palm and grapes, you derive strong drink and a goodly provision. Verily, in this is indeed a sign for people who have wisdom. And your Lord inspired the bee, saying, take you habitations in the mountains and in the trees and in what they erect. Then eat of all fruits and follow the ways of your Lord made easy for you. There comes forth from their bellies a drink of varying colors, wherein is healing for men. Verily, in this is indeed a sign for people who think. And Allah has created you, and then He will cause you to die, and of you there are some who are sent back to a feeble old age, so that they know nothing after having known much. Truly, Allah is all-knowing, all-powerful. This is just part of what I read. That was the turning point. So after that, like I would just go to the yard. It was only like maybe 2 weeks after that I took my shot. So I would just I would walk in the yard, and I couldn't see much of nature, but I would like look at the sky and you look at the trees and stuff like that, just based on what I was reading in Surah An-Nahl, right? And so I went back to Juma. So I told the guy in my cell who wasn't a Muslim. I told the guy, I said, man, I think I need to become a Muslim, right? So I didn't do it that week. I didn't do it that week. And it was on September the 6th, 1991. I didn't do it that week. I did it the following week, I think it was September the 15th or whatever it was. I did it the following week, the following Jumu'ah. Went up, I told Saleh, I said, look, man, I'm ready, man. So he went to the Imam. He went to the Imam, told the Imam, yeah, brother, yeah, he's ready. So so I went up, took my shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the saving messenger like this. Everybody came up, back then, they would do the takbir in unison. Allah Akbar, Allah takbir, Allah Akbar. Everybody came up and hugged me and everything like this. And that was the beginning. After that, there was a muezzin there. His name was Ali Muslim. And so then I moved in with Salih because Salih was down the hall on Four Wings, so I moved in with him. And he taught me how to pray and stuff like this, how to make ablution and all that stuff. And there was a muezzin, and his name was Ali Muslim. And I was a singer, I used to sing. So Salih taught me the adhan. So I learned how to call the adhan, right? So he told the imam, he said, look, so they gave me a name, and it was Sadiq. That was the name. Or Sadiq, not Sadiq, Sadiq with Sod. Right. So he went to the imam, he said, look, Sadiq, he know how to call it Dan, and he could be the second muezzin. So I became the second muezzin. So when Ali Muslim didn't, feel like calling or whatever, he wasn't there, whatever, I would call the adhan. And then Ali Muslim got transferred. And I became the first muezzin. So this is just a little bit of the story. Alhamdulillah, and I thought, being that this was chapter 5, and chapter 5 was about inspiring stories, I said I would come on, and share mine briefly. Also, before we get out of here, I'm looking for Muslims to come on and share their story, whether they are reverts or they were born in Islam. I'm looking for them to come on to inspire others, to give some dawah, to share their story. If any Muslims that are listening or watching are interested in doing that, please reach out to me via email at spiritualcoaching.150@gmail.com. That's spiritualcoaching.150@gmail.com. I thank you guys for all of your support, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.